Hi, everybody, and welcome back. It's Rip City Real Talk. With you, as always, are your hosts, Anthony Blaylock and Craig Moshkow. How's it going, buddy?
Good man, good. It's feels good to get back to doing a normal episode, and then we kind of did our playoff thing last week. Tried to break down the series as best we can and give people some information about both teams, and now we're ready to start breaking down the games. So
Yeah,
looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking about the first four games, and that's what we're going to cover today, and kind of the series as a whole, and then hopefully finish up the series with a positive outcome.
absolutely. Happy Memorial Day to you. And so, going through this series, let's start right there. Last week, let's talk about last week a little bit, our pod. I was really confident in this series, and I know you were too. I think that looking at the key matchups, we were really thinking that Nurk was going to be big in this series. And going into game one, I think that we were right about that. I think going into game one, Nurkic was really important, and his defense against Jokic was really important. You want to recap game one a little bit and just talk to us about what we saw?
Yeah, I mean, so we won 123 to 109, which is kind of slowly been a slight trend there for the next couple of games. The scoring has been pretty consistent for both teams.
Hmm.
But yeah, you walk into Denver, right? We were probably one of the hottest teams in the league, going 10 out of our last 12 to end the season. But again, we talked about the competition not being
Okay.
necessarily up to par, and it just so happens that you draw a team where they're missing a bunch of people. So
Hmm.
the trend kind of continues with Portland, right? We kind of go in playing a team that's a little less than 100, even though they have the potential MVP. So you still feel good. We talked about feeling good in the series.
Hmm.
I thought we would take the first game in Denver because I kind of just felt like we were going to catch them off guard a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't think they tried very hard in that season finale. I think that this was kind of one of those situations where both teams weren't really playing their guys 100%. So we walk in there. And then we take care of business, and a lot of why we took care of business, in my opinion, yeah, I mean, you could talk about Nurk and the defense, and we'll get to that. But I thought something that we did in this game that we really haven't done the rest of the series was our bench scoring.
Hmm.
It was pretty good. I mean, you think Melo had 18 points and Simons had 14 points, and I really thought that was going to set the tone for the rest of the series. We haven't been known as a good bench team throughout the year. I mean, Carmelo's kind of been our only option, and then Cantor's done about as much as you could ask a role playing center to do, but we haven't had that other guy. We really just haven't had it. I mean, Trent's been playing starter minutes most of the year. We trade for Powell. He ends up starting. So it's kind of been up to Simons to be that scoring guard, and 14 points. That's all. That's what you want. That's perfect.
Hmm.
So I think that was a big deal. It was a big deal because it allowed Damon, CJ, and even Powell to kind of coast through the game. I guess I could say is one way to put it. They didn't have to
Yeah.
play as hard as you think they would, because they had a little bit more rest, and we were able to sustain a lead and hold things just based on the fact that our bench guys were playing a little bit better. And I also think another key for me was shooting 47% from the 3-point line.
Hmm.
Again, you'll notice this will be a trend throughout the series, but we talked about it in our first pod, and we talked about how we're going to be that team that needs to outshoot them. We're not very often going to win the points in the paint battle. They have better bigs than us, but they don't have a lot of perimeters defending, and they don't have a lot of guards that can slow Damon, CJ, and Powell and all these guys down. So if we can come out and do good from three, we're probably going to look pretty good in the series.
Hmm.
So those are the two main things that I noticed. That and the other thing I bring up is Powell didn't look great to me. So I kind of want to touch on that a little bit. He shot 3 of 11. He only got 10 points. Him and Rocco really haven't been doing much at all in the series. But to me, in game one, being able to win while Powell was a little bit off is not necessarily a bad thing to me. It just means that we were overall productive as a team. What did you notice?
Yeah, I mean, I think in game one, Dame looked like superstar Dame. He had 34 points. He's doing a lot. I don't know why Powell can't get right or why he can't get it on track. He definitely has seemed to struggle. His defense on Michael Porter Jr. has been, I would say, very serviceable, and we can live with that matchup defensively. But offensively, I agree with you. I think Powell, and at times, so CJ's been pretty consistent statistically, but he's taking a lot of shots. And it feels like if the two of them were to efficiently hit their threes, we'd walk away with this series. You know what I mean? And the games that we've struggled in, the two of them, especially their outside shooting, has just not been there. And they've been open a lot of the time too, and they're still missing. So that will be that will be really crucial in the back half of this series and seeing if we can come out on top or not.
Yeah. So those are my main things from game one. I honestly wasn't too much going on there. It just kind of was one of the situations where you walk in, you take one, you got the home court advantage now because you took it from them, and we kind of expected them to swing back a little bit game two, and I think that's where we ran into some issues because I thought we'd lose this game anyway coming into the series. I really thought we'd win one, lose two, but we lost two pretty bad. We lost 109 to 128.
Yeah.
What are the things that you noticed from that game, man?
That was a weird, choppy game. It was very. There was lots of There was 2 flagrants that got called. There was technicals. The refs were blowing the whistle. It felt like every other play. It really, and not to say that the refs were the only reason why, because Jokic had 38, 5 and 8 in that game. He looked like the better superstar in that game. Denver made better adjustments than Portland did, I feel like, in that second game. They were able to put Aaron Gordon on Dame for multiple stretches, and that length seemed to bother him a little bit. And so I just feel like Denver outplayed us in the second game. Now, when you're looking at the series as a whole, if you just steal one game in Denver, to me, that was good enough. I was pretty happy with that. I thought for starting off that way and losing game 2 did not hurt my feelings in any way. I would have liked to have seen it be more competitive. I don't like getting blown out. That's for damn sure. But the thing about that is, so Dame had 42 and 10 for 10 assists, which was ridiculous. The other thing is Nurkic foul trouble. And we'll talk about this. I think we're going to talk about this in the entire series. In that game, Nurk got into foul trouble and he fouled out. And his last 2 fouls, 5 and 6, were bonehead fouls. They should not have happened. He has to be smarter than that. He kind of got baited into, and the whole Blazers as a team got baited into this emotional response where we were kind of punching them a little too much. And we needed to keep calm, keep our composure, and play smarter. So that's the notes that I had from game 2.
Yeah, and so some things I noticed, and just statistically speaking, a big difference from game one was the bench scoring. I talked about Carmelo and Simons playing really well in game one and getting a lot of points. Well, in game two, Melo goes 1 of 5, he gets 5 points. And then Simons, I think he plays about 10 minutes and he gets 3 points.
Yes.
Really, that was about it. I mean, Cantor didn't get much run there. The bench guys, I mean, those are the main guys. We had other guys come in and get points, but that was garbage time because it was a blowout. I mean, Little and those guys came in and got a tiny bit around. So don't count them. Our 2 main guys that really produced in game 1 did not produce in game 2. And on the flip side of that, Denver had Morris and Millsap go off. Morris for 12, Millsap for 15. I say go off, but realistically, compared to our bench, they were able to consistently score. Any kind of hope that we had of coming back in that game, just we could not make a run because they were consistently scoring on their bench and holding out just long enough until their starters were able to get back in. And we never really got close to them, in my opinion, because of that.
That's something you mentioned last week when we talked. You said the Melo versus Millsap matchup is going to be crucial as to who can take advantage of who as far as a vet power forward off the bench. And in the games where Melo has beat him, we've pretty much won. And in the games that Millsap's gotten the better of Melo, they've won. Now, I don't want to make it that derivative, but it really does boil down to we don't really have much of a bench. And our 2 guys right now, it's Anthony and Melo, have got to give us some zest off the bench scoring wise.
Yeah, because the 2 superstars are going to do the 2 superstar things. You pointed out the stats for Dame and Jokic. I mean, they're going to get theirs. Porter's going to look, he's going to get his shots. He's going to make some points. Gordon's going to take advantage of things. And it's going to be the same with CJ and Powell. They're going to take advantage of their opportunities. They're going to put up points. You know what you're going to get from those guys. And then I really think that some of those bench players are going to make a big difference of just holding out a lead and not giving it up, or, recovering and keeping things stable, or whether or not they're building or losing more of a lead. Denver happened to grow when Millsap and Morris came off the bench. That lead went up. So by the time Dame and CJ and these other guys came back in, it was a little too late. So that's the thing I noticed. Obviously, this is one of those situations where, again, we kind of got blown out in assists. 29 for Denver, 15 for Portland. That's another one of those things I bring up because this is kind of one of those games where energy-wise, again, I still think we're the better team. But these are these games where they came out, they did not want to lose 2 games at home, and they just played with a bit more aggressive nature and they were
Mhm.
more energetic than us. The assist total is huge because they were swinging the ball around, taking advantage of all sorts of things, our disarray on defense, and that was another one of those situations where they were able to take advantage of us and build on those leads and keep a lead up because we could not slow them down at all. So that's a big stat that I noticed. They also had 54 points in the paint. Once again, offensive rebounds come into play. We talk about Millsap. Him and JaMychal Green have been kind of killing us on the boards off the bench, which makes sense. I mean, Melo's not going to go down there and rebound, and we haven't been playing much at Cantor because he's kind of getting stuck on Jokic, and can't have that either because Jokic is shooting like 75% against Cantor. So the rebound's a big issue. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I noticed. They were able to get a lot of putbacks. That also led to a lot of their assists on some of those kickbacks to get those open looks. Not a good game overall, but it is what it is. We split in Denver.
Yep.
You'd be happy about that. At least you know that you can take advantage of their home court. And I'm fine with that. So that moves us to game 3 because talking about home court, now we get it back. We get it back with about 8,000 to 9,000 fans. Things are real in the old Moda Center. You come home
Yeah.
and you lose 120 to 115. Tell me about it.
I really can't explain that game. It reminded me of the second game a little bit with the fouls and the whistles. It felt like Denver was, doing exactly what they needed to do to hold Portland in their place. Again, I feel like there is some adjustments that needed to be made a little bit in this game. We ended up playing the same people, and Jokic absolutely abused Cantor in that matchup. He just destroyed him. And it actually forced us to make some changes to what we were doing. It was too little too late for this game. But every time Cantor would come in, Jokic would just dominate him. And we'll talk a little bit about that matchup, but I feel like that is one of the things where finally Stotts goes to Rondae. He makes that call of using Hollis Jefferson in a small ball lineup because it's like, well, who cares? Jokic is going to destroy us no matter what. The other thing is that's the Austin Rivers game, right? Austin Rivers hits 4 threes in a row, and we can talk about perimeter defense and we can talk about that as well. But Denver just put us in the sleeper hold, and they just kept us every time we felt like we were going to break out and catch them. They just tightened the lockdown just a little bit on us, and just we never could get back.
Yeah, he had 5 threes that game, all pretty much at the end, like you said, and that's another issue we've talked about throughout the year with CJ's lack of size. I
Yep.
feel like CJ was in position every once in a while, most of those threes, I should say, to be able to slow that down, but Rivers just shot over him because he wasn't close enough. I don't really think they expected Rivers to take as many deep shots as they did in a
No.
close game like that. He just felt hot and he took advantage of it, and so be
Yeah.
it. Remember that time we wanted him on the Blazers? Because I do. I remember talking about that. So,
I remember talking about that all year.
well, yeah, I learned about flavors.
The other thing is, and I'm sure this is really the key of the game, they shot 53% from three. They shot 20 of 38. We shot 31%. You're not going to beat anybody shooting 31%. And that's why I talk about, with Powell and CJ and these perimeter shooting, that's when Dame is doubled or trapped, that's their job. Their job is to hit the open three or to put pressure on the rim, whatever they can do to help us offensively when Dame is getting trapped. And we just couldn't help Dame out in this game. There's just nobody could do anything. So CJ gets 22 and 9. Dame had 37 and 5. And then when you look at Nurkic, he has 13 and 13. There was a stretch in that third game where Nurk was dominating. If you remember, he was passing. He hit a couple cutters down there. He hit Rocco for that huge dunk that Rocco had. We were just really streaky in that game and we couldn't find consistency. It was a tough one, and I feel bad that we lost in Moda and gave them home court back.
Yeah, there was quite a few things there. I think the fouls were a big part of it. And Dane
Mhm.
came out after the game, complained about feeling like everything they did was being called for a foul. When you look at the numbers,
True.
we got called for 24 fouls. The free
Mhm.
throw difference was 22 to 11. They
That's crazy.
doubled us in free throws. In a 5-point game, to me, that's concerning. I mean, I listen. I agree with you. I don't like to make refs a big deal,
Yeah,
and I
we
think
don't.
there's certain situations where fouls are definitely warranted, but you need to call it consistently. When it's a physical game and you're letting guys get banged around, that's fine. But don't.
Mhm.
I just don't like to see the ticky tacky foul calls. The ones where a guy's like just kind of playing defense, and the guy moves and he bumps him by a little bit. Off ball fouls, little ticky tacky things like that. There's certain situations where they need to let things go. And if you're going to call the ticky tacky things, because I feel like they do that sometimes to slow a game down when teams are kind of getting a little emotional.
Tippy.
It's a way to just separate them, to chill things out before they get to the flagrant situations. They had that in game 2. They were probably trying to avoid it. I think that's why we saw more foul calls.
Sure.
But they were called against us and not Denver. And I think that's, you look at the numbers and it's easy to be like, well, yeah, it was obviously a huge disadvantage. And I think that's something that Dane called out.
Yep.
I think it's something that's going to be monitored pretty closely the rest of the series. That was a big difference to me in this game, especially. I mean, when they get 11 more free throws than you and they win by 5, I mean, do the math. And as well as what you pointed out, the 3-point shooting, they hit 23s. That is the most threes they've hit all year. So that was kind of ridiculous.
Golly.
And we shot 31%, but that's because I think we hit 2 threes into that game that bumped that percentage. But it really was in the 20s almost the entire game, and really going into the fourth quarter, I believe it was at 21%. Yeah, you can't have that, man. Especially when you're giving them the best 3-point shooting, game that they've had all season, including playoffs. That's our peanut butter and jelly. Like, you can't do that. You sit there and miss that many threes and let them shoot that many threes. I mean, you're going to be in a bad spot, whether it's home or on the road. We are a team that attempts 40 plus threes. We're third in the league in attempts for 3 points. You can't have us shooting that bad. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, refs aside, if we hit 2 more threes, we win the game. When you lose by 5 and you think about those numbers, it's the end of the day, or if you hold them back from 2 more threes, it's just that close, and those types of things make a big difference. Nurk fouling out is a big issue. I agree with you. It was the problem in game 2. It was a problem in game 1. I do remember the stretch you're talking about, and that stretch was when Jokic wasn't out there. They kind of went and tried to play these guys throughout most of the third quarter, which is a big thing. Fans on, we've heard people in the media, we've heard fans on social media talking about trying to match Nurkic's minutes with Jokic.
Yeah.
It works and it doesn't work. There's a couple. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's a big deal when he fouls out and you have to put Cantor in. Cantor didn't play much because of that same situation. He can't handle Jokic, so we went pretty small ball with Carmelo playing center and big stretches against Jokic, which I felt worked. When you watch the game, he was big enough to be able to slow him down just weight wise. I think that Cantor is just a little too skinny. I mean, he's a muscular dude,
Sure.
but I'm talking about dealing with Jokic. I just don't think he has the size to be able to at least pound for pound kind of bang around with him.
Yeah.
Or Melo at least was able to slow him down. And that did bring in Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who we've seen 2 games in a row now. And I love that personally. I think the energy that he brings to the team, he ain't going to score for you. He's just not. He can't shoot. I could probably shoot better than him, but he can play make, and he's always around the ball. Every time I see that ball, I see Rondae around. The yellow hair, the macaroni and cheese hair, is just always there, flopping around by that basketball. So I like that adjustment. I do think Stotts tried to make some adjustments. I think they tried to take advantage, and not with Jokic being out, by putting Nurkic in and trying to take advantage of no Jokic. I respect it. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think that made Nurkic just a little too tired coming into the fourth quarter, but I can understand why he did it. I mean, you're trying to take advantage of Jokic not being out there and then not having anybody that can slow down Nurk. And with the rebounding being an issue the entire series, I figured they probably felt, well, we're not going to let Millsap and Green go beat us down these boards anymore. Let's let Nurkic take advantage of them. And he did. Problem is, those extra minutes ended up causing him to foul out, and he wasn't able to play the final few minutes of the game, and that kind of cost us. So those are the things I noticed in that game. We actually beat them points in the paint 54-30, and I think that's because of the stretch when Nurkic was playing without Jokic out there. He was able to take advantage of it, like you said. And
crazy.
So those are the things that I noticed, man. And that brings us to game 4. So it's an early game, an early afternoon game, and we just dominate them 115-95.
Well,
that feels good.
Well, okay, so both these games are at home. Both these games, both teams started the same players. So what is the big difference? I mean, did the Blazers just out execute them? Did we just shoot better this game? Was our energy? What is the difference between the game 3 losing at home and game 4 we come out and just destroy them?
Yeah, so for me, the thing that I noticed right off the bat was the role players putting up more points. Dame actually had his worst game maybe of the season, but definitely of the series, only getting 10 points. He didn't shoot super great. He played all right defense, and he still got 10 assists. But to me, it was Norman Powell got 29 points. I mean, Melo came out and had, I think, 15 or 12. It was his birthday. CJ did his thing. He got plenty of points. It
21.
felt like everybody contributed where we haven't really seen everybody contribute, especially Powell.
Yeah.
And we did it early. That was the other thing that kind of came into play. I mean, Nurkic had probably his best game of the series, and we just got up on them. We ended up playing good enough defense. They missed enough shots to where we were so efficient that we got up by 30 at halftime, and they just kind of, I just don't think they tried. I think they mentally were out of the game at that point. They didn't really seem to hustle as much as they have been the other games. I think they knew it was over and they figured, screw it, let's go back to Denver and take back the series there, whatever their mindset was. Because they actually hit one more three than us.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like we were just lights out shooting the ball compared to them. They hit one more three than we did. We were more efficient with our 3-point shooting than they were. They only shot 34% from the field just in general from that game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lack of trying. I really kind of felt like they gave up. We just came out so hot.
Mm-hmm.
We did the things that we should have done in game 3 where we were getting a lot of good looks. We just weren't hitting them. Well, we hit them this time, and that's kind of the big difference. And it's going to be the big difference in the series going forward is whether or not we can continue to hit threes at that kind of a level and just take advantage of the mismatches that we clearly have.
Yeah. And then Michael Porter Jr. gets 3 points. Aaron Gordon gets 6 points. So defensively, Austin Rivers has 8. I mean, defensively, we played a phenomenal game. I think it helps when the Blazers are ahead a little bit. We're built to play ahead. I think it helps when our offense is flowing and we're getting to the rim and we're not just missing a bunch of long threes and then getting into transition. We've talked about that a lot this year. In games where we brick threes, a lot of times the other team will get it and then run transition against us. So it does help that we're offensively clicking. I didn't expect us to blitz them like that. I didn't expect us to absolutely blow them out of Moda. I thought that would be kind of a close game with it being an early afternoon game. It's kind of a weird deal. I do think that the crowd helped a lot. Dame had 10, 10, and 8, which is a really weird game for him. But as far as assists, I mean, maybe he just didn't need to do anything because Powell has 29, Nurkic has 17, CJ has his 21. So he just had 22 or 21 in almost every game this series. So he's been Mr. Consistent. Now he's doing it on usually 20 shots, which is a lot more than you'd probably like your shooting guard to need to get 22 points, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and we talk about Dame's assist numbers, and that's what he's been doing most of the year. He's trying to get these other guys involved. The difference is these guys were hitting their shots, and that's going to make a big difference. He was able to play more pick and roll with Nurk because guys weren't able to trap him as much, and he hasn't gotten trapped that much in this game. I mean, they've come up and tried to hold him on some screens.
Yes.
But I think the ability to get that ball to Nurk and the Powell and a lot of these guys, at least so far early in the series, has been huge for us because Dame really hasn't been hampered. We've seen it in the past where people try to trap him. I don't think you can do that, or at least not as well now.
They can.
Because you can't leave a guy like Powell open. You can't leave a guy like Rocco open from 3. He hasn't done much in the series, but you can't leave him open from 3. So, yeah, this is one of those games where he was able to get the ball to Powell, and Powell just knocked it down over and over and over. Or he got the ball to CJ, and CJ's been able to take advantage of his one-on-ones, making Rivers look silly. So those are the things I noticed. It reminded me a lot of the finale, the regular season finale against Denver, where we just got up, blew them out at halftime. They kind of made some mini runs here and there. We got a little comfortable, but as soon as it got to like 21, 22, 23, we just put the pedal back down in the metal and finished them off. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing about this series is it's going to be about who executes, who hits their open threes, and honestly, defensive effort. I know that it's going to boil down to adjustments. Everybody wants to see Stotts make all these crazy adjustments and play Rondé these big minutes and move the offense and change the offense. But at the end of the day, if Powell and CJ hit their shots and score 25 or one of them goes off for 30 and Dame is doing what he needs to do, other than Jokic, Denver really hasn't had any big threats. I know that there was the Austin Rivers game where he hit 4 threes, but other than him and Michael Porter Jr., I know. I was going to say, other than those two, and then, I mean, Aaron Gordon has not looked very good offensively in this series, not one time. Millsap had that 15-point game that they won in game 2. Aside from that, they just don't have any real threats. What scares me about Denver is I don't think we've played very well, to be honest with you. I think we played well in game 1, and we played well in game 4. But games 2 and 3, Portland just looked out of sorts and we looked rattled emotionally. And that's why we were getting all those foul calls and those flagrants. So over the next 3 games of this series, with 2 of them being in Denver, what does Portland need to do to get a dub and win this series?
Yeah, so this is kind of where we'll talk into the series as a whole and things I've noticed. I think the first and foremost is Nurkic needs to continue to stay out of foul trouble.
Yes.
I've seen that stints where, to me, it almost feels like he's trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
When I say he's trying to do too much, I feel like you see him going out for a lot of steals. He's diving after balls, which is great. You want to see the hustle, but he exposes himself a little bit when he's out there trying to help on a double team.
Sure.
Uh, with a guy like Jokic who can shoot the three or drive and pass as well as he can, pretty much do anything he wants. Nurkic has to be more aware of that. I think this is, we talk about the drop center, and a lot of people don't like Stotts and the drop center thing. Well, this is kind of one of those situations where you have to be really, really careful of that, because with Nurk continuing to go out and help on the perimeter, he's drawing a lot of fouls on guards, or I should say they're drawing fouls on him. He's getting a lot of bad fouls up on top of the key in the perimeter where he really shouldn't be getting as many fouls as he is. And it makes it really tough to get back and help on a guy like Jokic, because now you're having the scramble and he's able to pass the ball around where he wants. But all that being said, it doesn't really matter if Nurkic can stay out of foul trouble, because he's still going to be pretty disruptive. He's still going to be down there guarding Jokic. And if he can make Jokic score 16 points like he did in game 4 and consistently put that kind of pressure on him without fouling, that's it. I mean, all you have to do is make Jokic work harder and harder. We saw it in 2019. As that series went on, Jokic just got gassed. He just couldn't do it. And that was without Nurk. That was without a 300-pound guy or however big Nurk is. I don't know, but he's a big dude.
Yep.
He's a big dude. And that's without having to body him up over and over and continuing to try to shoot around him or sprint around him or whatever the case is. So if Nurk can stay out there, I don't necessarily need him to match his minutes with Jokic minute for minute, because Jokic is in better shape. No offense to Nurk.
Yeah.
Nurk's a big guy. Jokic plays, 35 to 40 minutes a game in some of these close games. That's impossible. You cannot ask Nurk to do that. I don't want him to do that because of his injury history. I feel like that much weight and that much fatigue leads to injuries. So you got to pick and choose your stints where he's going to be on Jokic. And as long as you can slow him down just enough, that's going to be the make or break. I mean, that's the big missing piece of this Blazers team for a long time, is a center who can help at least slow down other teams' bigs. So that's my first thing. And then I think the second thing I'll touch on, I got a bunch here. We'll go over it together. But the other thing I want to talk about with you before we move on is 3-point percentage. We've already touched on this as we go through each game individually. But as long as we can shoot probably 35%, I'd say 35+% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do that, we're going to win most of these games, and we're going forward, not just this series, but if we were to advance, I should say. That's a trend with this team going into the entire playoffs and all year. But in this series, especially, if you beat them in the 3-point percentage and you're able to shoot 35, I don't think they have enough firepower to keep up with you, and they definitely don't have anybody to slow you down. We saw it in the games that we've won.
Yeah.
We've shot really well. We've shot them out of the building.
Yeah, absolutely. And Denver hasn't done enough to make Dame uncomfortable in this series. Like you talked about, he's beat the trap every time. The passing he's been very precise with that. The thing about Jokic, and I mean, people will probably look at the box score and they say, wow, Jokic had 38 or whatever, and they say Nurkic probably didn't defend him that well. The thing is, Nurk is playing really good defense, but Jokic's shot is very Dirk Nowitzki-esque, where he like goes up and over you.
So high.
It's so high and it's ridiculous. And he hits these fall away fading shots that are just no one could stop that. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's Anthony Davis or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, so far, the winning formula for the Blazers has been body Jokic with Nurk and just don't double him. Don't send a lot of help. Don't do too much, and just hope and pray that Denver's perimeter shooting doesn't get hot. And so far, it's worked in 2 games. I do feel like the foul calls, like you were talking about, if the foul calls were more even in games 2 and 3, I feel like, and if our 3-point shooting was even mediocre in those games, we probably could have won those games. I don't think the defense has been absolutely terrible in a single game that I've watched yet this year or this series. And the other thing is,
yeah, careful.
Yeah, this year. The other thing is, and my question to you, Cantor's been unplayable. I mean, like literally Stotts can't put him out there. He's getting destroyed, like you said. He's one of the worst defenders on Jokic so far, and he can't help or switch at all on the perimeter. So what do you do there if you're Stotts? Are you going to play Rondé a little more or what?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's a question I've been thinking about when it comes to Cantor. I was, you think it might be matchup based, but I think the problem is he's been stuck on Jokic a little more than we anticipated. I think Jokic plays big minutes, and that's fine. I mean, the guy's in good enough shape to play 35 minutes a game. But we've seen situations where Nurk has gotten in those foul trouble, the 2 and 3 in games 2 and 3, and Cantor just can't take Jokic. I think Cantor could take advantage of JaMychal Green, and I think he could take advantage of Paul Millsap to some extent, at least on rebounds. But he's not able to get out there and play big minutes with them. And he really, even when he has just not looked good. He's not getting those typical Cantor rebounds. I don't know if that has to do with energy or what it is, but he just hasn't looked himself, and I think it's kind of had him fall out, and he's fallen out of our rotation slowly. And we've been successful when we run Melo at the small ball center, and that's the thing that I've noticed we've been doing a lot of Melo, Rocco, and then either Powell or Rondae Hollis Jefferson. So I actually like that more. I like it more because I think Melo kind of forces Jokic to come away from the rim a little bit more, which has actually been allowing us, if you've been paying attention, allowing a lot of easy drives for a guy like Powell or Rocco's even been able to take advantage. We drew more fouls in game 4 because we were pulling him out a little bit more than we normally would. I mean, it helps to hitting all your shots, of course, but it kind of makes them play defense a little bit different. And Melo's been doing just enough when he's been playing in those stints to slow Jokic down, to let Nurkic get that rest and, not play as many minutes, which allows him to not get as many fouls and be there in close game situations. So I like it. I love Rondae Hollis Jefferson. He's a guy that we talk about end of the year here. I would love to bring back because he's going to be super cheap. I just think and again, people are going to probably get on me about this, and I really don't care. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like, he's doing what Derrick Jones should be doing. At least on the defensive side of things. He's consistently around the ball. He's getting offensive rebounds. If not getting them, then he's at least super close. Same with defensive rebounds. He seems to always be there, almost getting a rebound. He runs around. His arms are always up. He seems to always be in a guy's face. I mean, yeah, he's going to make a couple mistakes. It's just going to happen. But if Derrick Jones did the things that I see Rondae Hollis Jefferson do, I don't even need you to score. Like, I don't care if you're missing your threes right now or your dunks are fine, but it's the energy on rebounding and defense that I'm seeing Rondae do, where I feel completely comfortable continuing to put Melo at that small ball center, playing more with Rocco and Rondae, and then, eventually bringing Nurk and Powell back in and figuring it out from there. But Melo usually slides to the 4 to finish a game, or they'll kind of, depending on need, we'll switch him with Rocco. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's the last couple games we lost by 5 and we've won, and we've done that by removing Cantor and essentially bringing in Rondae Hollis Jefferson and playing with Melo a little bit more. And that formula seems to be doing it for me. It's at least making them tired. I mean, it's at least making them have to work a little bit harder. And I would love to continue to see that. I have it on my notes, wanting to see Rondae Hollis Jefferson play more minutes during certain situations, because of the fact that I just think he doesn't let you get into those lulls where they're just going on big runs, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-point runs, or whatever it is, to either keep a big lead or to continue to build on it. He's consistently giving you that energy. And it just kind of, you get a little bit more flexibility with Melo going in the small ball center, which is surprising because I really didn't think he'd hold up against Jokic as much as he did. But he's so far has actually done pretty good considering.
I like the small lineups, and I like the small lineups for 2 reasons. We've been getting out rebounded anyway the whole series, so who gives a damn, right? Like, Rocco's a small 4, and they have 2 big 4s in Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., and they always have either JaMychal Green or Paul Millsap, a power forward out there, so they're just going to be bigger than us. So if you go small, there's 2 reasons that you do that. You're going to get out rebounded anyway. Defensively, you can switch more, so you're much more versatile switching. Obviously, Jokic is going to get his no matter what, but you can switch on the perimeter so much easier with Rondae Hollis Jefferson than you can with Cantor. And the other thing that I like about going small is, on the offensive end, we don't just spam pick and roll with Dame and Nurk or Dame and Cantor. When you have a small ball lineup, the ball moves faster. And with these Blazers, I like ball movement, and I like when the ball's whipping around because it leads to more open threes for them. I think that Powell's key to success that last game was he hit his open shots, but the ball was moving. And when the ball is moving, Powell can drive and kick. CJ can drive and kick. When the Blazers are playing from behind, it's a little more hero ball, and it's a little more that pick and roll ball where CJ's trying to get his own ISO shot. that when that happens, it really doesn't help us a lot. I know we can score that way, and I know Dame and CJ are very successful at that, but that's not the best version of our offense. So I love the small ball lineups. I think that's what we should do. I think we should try to counter Denver by doing that.
No, and it's good that you said that because I like how you brought up the being able to switch and move around. You have a little more flexibility and movement with your defense. And we talked about this coming into the series a little bit, that we held Jokic to about 4 assists per game, which this year was the second lowest against, or the lowest against any team in the league. I mean, he's been averaging almost 9. This series, the most he's gotten, I believe, was 5. That was I want to say it was in game 3.
Mm-hmm.
We've held him in check as far
Yeah.
as passing. Now he doesn't have Murray to,
Sure.
really run the offense, which kind of opens things up for him a little bit more when he gets the ball. He can kind of pick and choose what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about being able to switch and move around. We haven't really thrown a lot of doubles at him. We haven't had to because Nurk has done a pretty good job when he's actually on him for the most part. I mean, like you said, he's still gonna eat, but they've slowed him down by playmaking for other guys. And that's been huge. I mean, when you look at some of these games and the close games and the ones we've won, you're not letting a guy like Porter really go off. Hats off to you. You called him struggling a bit. I still feel like he's more of that's on him just missing shots than it has been us really slowing him down for the most part. But we also haven't given him a lot of good looks. He's not getting wide open threes. And, Gordon's been struggling. We talked about that. I think he had 18 points in game 1, but he's been struggling because he can't get those kicks from Jokic because we're not having to double. Rocco's able to kind of stay on him. And yeah, he's going to take advantage of rebounds and putbacks and things like that. But for the most part, they're not letting these other guys really get hot, and they're not letting them get going. I mean, granted, the series is tied, but I think a lot of that just has to do with Jokic having to do a lot on his own. And as this series goes on and on and on, and Jokic is continuing to have to post up and try to shoot over and score and drive at the rim and do all these things and isn't able to get anybody else involved, you're going to be looking pretty good for the series because Jokic is going to get tired. He's not going to be able to keep bodying up against Nurk for 7 games, playing 35 minutes and having to do everything on his own. We've seen Dame kind of in similar situations in the past where he's tried to do a lot and he starts to get fatigued. These guys can only do so much when they're carrying so much of a load. And so keeping these other guys out of the game will continue to be huge.
Yeah, and Covington hasn't hit double digits yet in this series. So I feel like he's going to have a game where he hits 4 threes pretty soon at some point. There's a lot of things that you could look at and say that the Blazers could do better in this series. But right now, it's a 3-game series and we got to win 2 games. That's it. Now, we have 2 games in Denver. I obviously think that it's going to be difficult, but at this point, I think it's going to go 7. I think it's going to come down to game 7. It's going to be who can out execute in game 7. We will see, but I don't think there's any big monkey wrenches that we can throw at them adjustment wise. I just think that the Blazers are going to have to come out and out execute them. We're just going to have to hit our shots. And then defensively, it's going to be running guys off of the line at the 3-point line and making sure that you're keeping them uncomfortable. I think you had a good point about Michael Porter Jr. He has not looked like he's got in a rhythm this whole series. And Norman Powell is smaller than him, but he's done a damn good job of keeping him on his toes. He's blocked him a few times and he's gotten into the body. Campazzo is annoying to Dame, dude. Have you watched that guy? That guy is just straight up a nuisance.
So I was talking with a buddy, and we've decided every series it seems like there's one guy throughout the last however many years. There's always that one guy that you just hate as Portland. I mean, Patrick Beverley's been there. I mean, there's just been all these guys that you just don't like. I don't know what it is, and it has nothing to do with him personally. Like I just don't like Campazzo. I feel like he's one, and it is due to respect. I mean, it really is. He's just annoying. He's a pest, like a little gnat. I mean, the dude is. You don't get to be 30-something years old and be a rookie in the NBA. I mean, I'm about ready to go be a rookie in the NBA. I mean, good grief. Like I'm about as tall as him. But man, the guy is always around the ball. He's made some really awesome defensive plays. I mean, so just hats off to him. He's consistently sprinting around out there. He's really hasn't been able to slow anybody down one-on-one necessarily. But he's just a pest. And so respect to him. He's been making some great passes. He's one of the reasons that Denver's even in the series, I mean, that we're even 2-2 is because he's been able to do just enough to disrupt plays and adds that energy that we've talked about, the energy that we get from Rondae Hollis, they get from him. And I have watched him. I hate the guy. He's one of those guys in a few years, you're like, God, if they just didn't have Campazzo, that's the hero of Denver, then I don't know. They're building statues of this guy in
Yep.
Spain or wherever he's from. It's crazy.
The other thing
But I
that
do
I
have a
had for
question.
you. Oh, okay, you go
Oh,
first.
whoa. For me? Like,
Yeah,
this is
maybe we have the
super
same
awesome.
question.
This
So
good Oregon hospitality.
yeah, here. So okay, here's my question to you. We talked about all year Aaron Gordon, and credit to you. You said that this guy's a little overrated. I don't think he'd help the Blazers that much. We shouldn't trade pieces for him. Honestly, I feel better with Covington on this team right now than I would with Gordon. Do you agree? I mean, this guy, he's shown us nothing this series that's made me think that he'd be a good asset for the Blazers, and I'm glad we didn't trade
Yeah.
him.
I don't know why people are so high on him all year. I haven't understood it for the last couple of years. That people are like, oh, we gotta go get Aaron Gordon. Why? He hasn't done anything. He had Orlando basically all to himself and did nothing with it. And now, I mean, you look at him on Denver, and he's had all the opportunity in the world. Murray's gone. You make the big trade for him. This is the type of game where, the series in general, where he should be able to do a little bit more against us with a small guard lineup. I mean, Rocco has been on him most of the series, which is fine, but he's not. I'm sorry. Maybe it's because he's on Rocco a majority of the time, and Rocco is not doing much and not asked to do much on offense. So it's not like we're seeing a crazy defensive presence, but you would think a guy with his athleticism would be involved a little bit more. And I think that's just probably hats off to Covington really just slowing him down more and more and doing a little bit here and there, and him not taking advantage of so many assists because we've been doing such a good job kind of making Jokic have to play hero ball on their end.
Yeah.
He's gotten some looks and threes, hasn't hit them. His free throw shooting is atrocious. He draws fouls. I mean, I'll give him that. He's a bigger guy, so if he gets a clear cut lane to the rim, I mean, he's able to do a lot there. But good for them. I hope you enjoy your $18 million a year that you're paying this guy. I'll take Powell every day. Like, I'm glad that didn't work. So yeah, I don't know. I just what is he done? Like, where's this? I mean, he makes a couple good plays here and there, but he's definitely not able to take over a game.
He's not super consistent like Rocco is. Like
he gets quiet points.
Yeah.
Like he had the 18. Yeah, he gets like they're quiet. They're not like big clutch plays more often than not. I mean, he'll get fouled and kind of extend a run or when things are close. He's had a couple moments where it's like, man, if we just would have not fouled him there, we would still be down 3 and not, 6 now or whatever the case is. But I don't know. He hasn't scared me. Porter still scares me more than him. Porter's the guy to me that he's been all right. He's been hovering in that 18 to 20 something point range, low 20s. He's the guy that I still can feel like can explode and go off for 5-6 threes in a game and just have that right moment. And he kind of worries me a little more. But so far, like you said, we've been able to switch, and Powell's been doing a good job on him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gordon doesn't scare me that much.
Yeah, I just had to bring that up because we've been on that all year, and you were on it for the last 2 years. What's your question for me?
So my question for you is going forward in the series. We've talked about what we think we need to do to win, and that's fine and dandy. But what's the one thing that worries you most? But from what we've seen in 4 games, what's the one thing that you think is a big issue going forward?
It's perimeter defense for me. I mean, like you just said, Michael Porter Jr. has not had the 5 threes, 25-point game yet. If Michael Porter Jr. and Austin Rivers get hot, Campazzo's shot like just not very well from 3 at all this series. Monty Morris has been good at times, and Marcus Howard, their other guard, has been kind of good at times. He dropped 12 one game. I just think it's perimeter defense. And so if Jokic was to get hot, whip the ball out to the perimeter, find open threes, if Gordon was to find some semblance of an outside shot and they just got hot from 3, I do see where they could outshoot us very easily. The other thing is Nurkic's foul trouble is a looming, like it's like this hovering thing that's always there that makes me nervous because 2 quick whistles and just because it happens quick, right? And that's the thing. In game 2, Nurkic only had 4 fouls. Then he got one on the defensive end. Then he got one on the offensive end. He was out just like that before Stotts could even really manage it, right? There was no opportunity to take a breather. That always makes me nervous, and that will always be in the back of my mind. So it's about limiting his fouls in the first half so that he can use that aggression in the second half. Those are my 2 keys for the rest of the series. I think Dame is going to get his. I think CJ is going to get his. I'd like to see Powell and Covington hit their open shots. That's going to be pretty significant down the stretch as well. But it always starts with defense, and Nurk is the key to that, and he's the linchpin that holds our defense together. When he's not out there, we have no chance, in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah. Fair enough. I think that's a valid point. It's going to definitely be that rain cloud that you just hope hovers over you and never rains. For me, it's the bench.
Yeah.
I really need to see the bench be a little bit more effective. It's basically all Carmelo at this point, and that we've talked about all year that's kind of worrisome because he's very streaky. He's going to continue to get his shots and he's going to put them up. But if they don't get some help, if Simons can't get back to putting up double-digit scoring, if he's barely even been playing, I mean, obviously Cantor's a thing of the past. I mean, Ronda is going to come in and give you that energy boost, but
It's
I just need more scoring off the bench to be able to keep up with them, and that's kind of a concern for me. Not just this series, I guess, but going forward.
yes.
Is we just don't. We've talked about it all year that we don't really have a good. We thought we had one of the best benches in the league in the season, and now Hood's gone and Trent's gone, and
Yeah.
it just has kind of been a weird situation where Simons has just not taken that next step. I've seen improvement from him throughout the year. I can't
No
knock him there.
consistency.
He's shooting a three, great. I just still don't feel like he's either. We've seen stretches where he's been really confident, but he just kind
Yeah.
of disappears in games, and he's that guard who really should come in and be able to get you a little bit of a run. He should be doing what Monty Morris is doing, for goodness sakes. Like, he has that in him,
Good
but he
point.
hasn't been doing it. So a lot of it's relying on Melo to continue to have to score. And if he's going to be efficient with it, I mean, if he's going to catch and shoot a three, I'm fine with it. If he's going to take advantage of a smaller guy on him, I'm fine with it. But I just kind of wish that we would have somewhere else, somebody else that could come in and give you 10 plus points. And really, it's only going to be potentially Simons, because Cantor can't, for whatever reason, is just not getting the minutes with these other smaller bigs when Jokic is out of the game, which is personally when I think he should be playing. And I mean, Jones isn't going to get out there anymore. Little just can't hang. I mean, I like Little and I like Jones where they can give you, but they're not playoff caliber. I mean, people who think they are, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're wrong. So yeah, I don't know. I
That
mean, the
worries
bench
me.
worries me a bit because
Yep.
Millsap, we've already seen Millsap, Morris, Howard. I mean, they have Jermichael Green. They have all these guys that can come in and give them something. And we don't even know if by the end of the series that they're going to get a guy like Barton back. Like, he's
Yeah.
on the fence potentially returning at some point. If he does return, even with 10 to 15, 20 minutes a game while he gets back into shape, with the lack of bench that we have, that could still be a little bit dangerous. And it forces our starters to have to play bigger minutes. And as this playoffs go on, if we get past this series, those minutes are going to start to add up a little more and more. And guys like Powell are going to even start to wear down. So it's concerning to me, but that's my number one thing is I really would like
Yeah.
to see us average, closer to 30 points on the bench, just in total. So
We
we'll see.
need it. Well, I mean, and it's weird with Anthony Simons because there's times where he looks like he could be a legitimate six man. He comes in,
Yeah.
he hits a couple threes really quick, and you're like, whoa, he's hot. But it's so inconsistent. And maybe that comes with playing time. Maybe it comes with experience, but I don't want to hinge. I mean, the next series, let's say we get past Denver, the next series we play, we really can't run 7 guys 39 minutes per starter, and then we're going to run the other 2 guys 22 minutes each, which is going to be, whether it be Anthony Simons and Melo, whatever. I do feel like we're very top heavy. Our starting 5 is very good, and then we have almost no bench after Melo. It's been really tough. So I would like to see Ant step up a little bit, and he's going to have to hit those outside shots just like the other guards are. He's going to have to take the pressure off, but we'll see. The other thing is points in the paint. I didn't expect to beat Denver at all. We've done that a couple times. So I guess if we can keep that trend up, that's great. It's going to come down to 3-point shooting, though.
Yeah, so that's about it, man. That's all I have so far with the first 4 games. We got 3 to go. I obviously, I mean, it's kind of silly and cliche to say, but game 5 is going to be the biggest deal here. Whoever takes this game probably has it, although ironically, 2019 was the complete opposite of this. And when Denver, Denver won game 5 and we won 6 and 7 to advance. So the teams are so even right now. The home court advantage obviously isn't there. Each team is taking one. So I'm sorry, that doesn't seem to matter very much. It's really just a matter of our matchup with our guards versus their bigs and whether or not they can get their bigs going. So game 5 will obviously be a big deal because we're so close that I'd rather have to have them win 2 than have us have to win 2, because I don't think we can do it. I just don't think that they're too close. So there's been no games where I think really feel like, oh, we're just clearly the better team. I mean, they've blown us out. We've blown them out. There was a 5-point loss, and then, game 1 was kind of what it was. So still a little nervous there, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good series the rest of the time. I've already felt the series is going to be fun. The chippiness, the arguing, some fun little tidbits, man. The NBA actually came out and they told Murray that he has to chill on the sideline. He's been
heard
too like,
that.
yeah, he's been too energetic. He's been going on the court.
Yeah.
So it's just that kind of series. We don't like each other, man. 2019 is in a lot of these guys' heads.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, Nurk was there, Cantor was there, CJ was there, Dame was there.
Mhm.
Obviously, Simons was there. And then you turn around and you got Carmelo just being originally starting his career in Denver, and they're booing him. So he's got some fire. And then on the flip side, Jokic was there. I mean, all these guys were still on this team. I mean, granted, they have a lot of new faces as well. There's still a lot of these guys like Millsap and whatnot that have remembered that 2009 series. So there's just a lot of headbutting in this one.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. It's fun to watch.
It is. And, whether we win or lose, either way, we're going to be here next Sunday, Monday for you. We'll post the video in the pod on Monday. But, we're going to call them how we see them, and we hope we win. We really do. At the end of the day, advancing in the playoffs is good for the Blazers. It's good for the franchise as a whole. So if you're a fan, you should be rooting for them to make the next round, regardless of what happens. So let's just hope we can come out and perform.
Yeah. So before we go, I do want to get back into my favorite segment.
Here we go.
Yeah, we haven't done it. We didn't. People were waiting for it last week, and they're like, "Oh, wait, they did a playoff preview," and I got no Blazing New Trails X Player of the Week, and they were very upset. I had absolutely nobody reach out to me on social media, and that was because they were so depressed they didn't do it. But they forgot in their grief to request it, so I'm going to give it to them now. Okay. Caleb Swanigan is my Blazing New Trails X Player of the Week. And we're a little behind on this story. I'm sure everybody's heard about it by now. I don't care. Whatever. We didn't do it last week. But as people may be aware, he got arrested, I believe, full on for having about 3 to 4 pounds of marijuana with him in his vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in a great place right now. He's obviously gained a lot of weight. He's been battling this throughout his entire life. I feel bad for him, man. He's an ex-Blazer twice because we traded him away. We ended up getting him back again, and then we finally kind of let him go. He never quite cracked a rotation. He was a first-round draft pick for us. We got him late. I think was a Big Ten Player of the Year or up there, one of those conferences. He looked really good in his career. Didn't quite cut it with us. Had a great summer league. I mean, the guy looked like he was going to be an absolute stud. We thought we got ourselves a bigger Draymond Green. He seemed like he could pass and shoot, and he just never translated to the actual NBA. And now he's out of the NBA. And unfortunately, sometimes with these guys, they don't know what else to do, and you struggle with some of the problems that he struggled with his entire life. It gets hard to make a change. So I just hope he's doing well. I mean, I hope that's something that he can get over. Listen, man, don't get me wrong. I enjoy some activities myself every once in a while, but I don't know about 3 to 4 pounds of it. So I don't know what he's going through. But I hope he can get his act back together, and I hope that maybe he can continue his career overseas and figure something out. I mean, he's probably done in the NBA for being real, but if you can get back in shape and, when you're a basketball player, hopefully you can take advantage of the gifts that you have. And I hope that he turns things around, man. So that's my play, everyone. You don't know who he is, look him up. He is a champion. He's the only championship the Portland Trailblazers have had in the last however many years was the Summer League. He was on that team with Simons and Wade Baldwin, if you can remember him. So hats off to him for that accomplishment. And I hope that all the best to him, man. I hope that he turns things around and has a good rest of his life, whether it be playing basketball or just in general.
Yep. It was cool to see the Blazers reach out to him. I think Dame reached out and a bunch of other people defended him. And basically, that's something that you can credit this organization with. We have nothing but upstanding guys who look out for each other, whether they've been, like Evan Turner is still, I feel like, a part of the sorority of the Blazers here. He's always a part of the organization, even if you're not in the organization anymore. So whenever these guys are struggling, Dame and CJ and the Blazers as a whole kind of wrap their arms around them and say, hey, what do you need from us? It's really cool to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, close to really they are. I mean, we saw Hassan Whiteside and Rondé Hood have both been here for the playoffs. They've come and watched games, and you think that with everything that went down with Whiteside and kind of lost his playing time, and we traded him away, and so Hood got traded away after kind of struggling, and there's still it speaks to the organization for them to still want to come back and watch this particular team do good. I mean, I know that probably the only team that they play on is still in playoffs, granted, but it is still kind of cool. I mean, Whiteside could have gone to Miami and watched their games for what that they had. But they chose to come here and be part of the crowd, and I love it. The players still go up to them all the time. It's just a cool environment that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure.
It is for sure. All right, man. Anything else big before we wrap?
No, hopefully we'll have not too many more games to recap next week. I'd like to lock this up in 6, just get 2 in a row and be done with it, get that extra rest. But unlikely. We're probably going to push it out to 3. So next week, depending on where we are, we'll start talking about our next matchup, which quite frankly, if we get past Denver, most likely it's going to be the Clippers, which we wanted to avoid in round 1, and now we're potentially going to get them in round 2. I don't know. They're right there with the Mavericks at 2-2, but they're the better team than Dallas. I have a feeling they're going to pull this out. The Lakers probably finish off the Suns. I know the Suns are 2-2 with him right now as well, but let's be real. If Anthony Davis
got hurt though,
yeah, he rested. He's going to be back. Yeah. He'll be fine. So that's one of those situations where if the Lakers win, they draw the Jazz, because it's based on seeding, and then we'll end up having the highest remaining seed, which at this point will be the Clippers. So, assuming that Utah finishes off Memphis, obviously.
Yeah, so, we'll see how it all shakes out.
We'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that. But as usual, thank you guys for your support. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. If you're new, like the video if you're a longtime fan. We're going to keep doing this throughout the year, regardless of basketball being played or not. So we'll continue to give you guys your content. For now, we're going to keep focusing on the playoffs. Go Blazers, and have a good rest of your day.
We out.